Why don't you give me a sign?
This is Corinna Jane.
That leads a trail along that shore. It's not your problem, it's mine.
With her brand new single, Give Me a Sign.
To your door, while the world still spins.
As featured on BBC Introducing.
It's just the way it's gotta be. Give me a sign about the things that we don't know. Why don't you give me a sign?
Corinna Jane, Give Me a Sign. Out now.
It's not your problem, it's mine.
Hey guys, my name's Katie Arnson, if you don't already know that. I'm in my second year at university. I'm studying contemporary dance. And on July 14th, I was diagnosed with melanoma, which is a scary word for skin cancer.
Hello, I'm Sophia Jessica, and welcome to the Fan Carpet.
It's wonderful to be joined by you both today. So if we go back to the beginning, was there a defining moment for you both to get into the industry?
That's a good question. I don't know if we still think of ourselves as in the industry exactly. Calvin and I met in film school. We both were very interested in film from a very young age. So we met in film school, and we saw coming out of film school a lot of people who had, wanted to direct, who had wanted to write, who had wanted to do those kind of things, ended up going off and taking sort of jobs at small TV stations and sort of more technical jobs. And they were like, oh, I just got to work my way up there. It's going to take me a long time. I have to go through this sort of more industry prescribed route to get there. And Calvin and I weren't interested in that. We wanted to sort of start making films right away. So we sort of post film school, we took 2 years, didn't take those other types of jobs. We both did things to support ourselves, but sort of pushed that to the periphery of our lives, and in the center of lives, we spent a lot of time writing screenplays. We wrote 7 feature screenplays, the 7th being the first that we felt was good enough and capable of directing. And so really we just sort of made this decision together to spend that time trying to figure out who we wanted to be as filmmakers. We spent a lot of time watching movies, writing screenplays, trying to figure out what the first film we could make was going to be. We were young guys, nobody was going to give us a lot of money. And so that was just sort of how we started figuring out what we wanted to do. But it took us, a couple of years, and we made our first film for a very small amount of money. It cost about $12,000 Canadian, which is peanuts probably even in pounds. So yeah, I don't know. This is our first larger film. We've been making films for about a decade now, but this is the first one that had sort of large financial support from a large institution like Telefilm Canada, which is our national funding agency. And so we're just starting to, I guess, show up on people's radar in a way that you might consider being part of the industry. But yeah, it's been a while coming here.
Cool. And for you, Calvin? Or was it all covered?
Yonah and I have known each other for 15 years, so and have worked together for 15 years. So yeah, he covered it. Our stories are very similarly aligned.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So obviously, White Lie is an interesting point idea. What was it about the film that enticed you to create it?
I think for us, we had heard of a few cases from the news of people doing this for real, and I don't think we would have come up with an idea if we had not seen some sort of real world inspiration, because the idea is so far-fetched and sort of so extreme. It's quite shocking that anyone would do such a thing. So we had found out about the idea maybe a decade ago, or we sort of found out about people doing this a decade ago and filed it away, thinking that it would be a great idea for a film, great entry point to a film, great idea for a character. And every time that we had space in between scripts or projects, we would talk about it, think about it, come back to it, think about how we could make it structure it into a screenplay that we could shoot. So it just, it all came from that first idea of a young person faking cancer, to defraud friends and family. And so that's the thing that stuck the longest. And we eventually decided that should be our next project. That's the thing that we should pursue. And then the work was just trying to figure out how to put it into a 2-hour film.
We just thought that it was such a fucking absurd thing to do. It felt unreal, and we couldn't figure out why on earth somebody would do this, how they think they could get away with it. And so that was what excited us. We were fascinated by it right off the bat, and thought other people would be as well.
Yeah, because there's a certain toll that it takes on your own body. With her having to shave her head and go imitate the idea of throwing up and stuff like that. That's got to take quite a toll on your body.
That was what drew us. A lot of people have done this in real life, and there have been a lot of different versions of it. There's a lot of this where it's people just hiding behind their computer, just saying, "I'm sick, help me," whether they're doing it for attention, money, whatever it may be, GoFundMe's and all these sorts of things. But there were also a section of these people who were going out into the real world and, shaving their head, making themselves look ill. And those people, we just, for a film that we thought that was far more visually interesting and something we actually knew how to tackle in a way that the movie we thought would be a lot less interesting if it was just what we're doing right now.
Yeah. Right. So obviously this is a drama, but do you have any preferred genres and any favorite films?
Do we have preferred genres? I think our taste is pretty widespread. We like. I don't know if there's a preferred genre. I think we're probably we tend towards dramas, and we do love the horror genre, but we're not too discerning in terms of genre. If it's a good movie, it's a good movie, and that's what we're always seeking out. We watch a lot of films. There's a lot to catch up on, and every year there's obviously new movies to catch up on as well. And so it's always that kind of the hunger that still fuels obsessively watching things comes from finding that discovery, whether it's a foreign language film that's super slow but is remarkable, or it's something thrilling and exciting out of Hollywood. It doesn't really matter to us. We're just always looking for interesting things to watch. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, we always sort of think of it a little bit like we're junkies and we're just looking for our next fix.
That's one way of looking at it.
Yeah.
So what was it about Kacey and Amber that made them stand out to you to lead this film?
Well, Kacey, we never met her in person when we cast her. She was on the other side of the country. So we saw tapes and we did some Skype calls with her. Skype feels like a very old thing to talk about, isn't it? We would say Zoom now. World has changed significantly since we started casting this movie. We just thought she was just clearly a powerhouse. She just knocked it out of the park. She went big, which was fun. But she also had she clearly showed that she had the range to do anything she wanted with the character. And the movie rested solely upon her, right? She's in every scene. If she wasn't great, or you didn't buy her, or she wasn't that interesting, or she wasn't that fascinating, that, the way we were talking about earlier with this character, you weren't going to care. So, a lot of directors spend a lot of time talking about how most of their job is just casting well. And then you don't need to do as much on set. And that was sort of our hope going into this, and we feel we succeeded. And some, other people seem to be saying the same thing about her performance. She is, fantastic in this role. she was able to play sort of all those layers and give you the sense that, like, you know, knowing what she's a character who's constantly, you know, putting the train track down just before the train, and you can feel that, you can see that in scenes, and you know, she just knocks it out of the park, scene after scene. And so, you know, we didn't do much on set with her. We didn't spend that much time in advance talking to her about it. We did a little bit, but you know, we wrote her some things to say, gave her some actions. She spent a lot of time sort of thinking about it. I think for her, a lot of it was sort of the physical, in inhabiting this character physically. So the head shave being obviously a massive thing. And that for us was one of the hugely important things, was somebody who was willing to shave their head. We needed that. We thought, you know, the movie was going to feel kind of bullshit if you know, she was wearing a bald cap. So she was wildly gung-ho to shave her head for some wild reason. She'd sort of, you know, a young female actress going to a million auditions. She'd always sort of felt like she had to keep her hair a certain way to please casting directors and agents and directors and all these things. And she'd always wanted to do something different. And this gave her an excuse to just say, like, fuck it, this is, you know, let's try something new. So that was wildly important for her to get into the character. And then for Amber came quite late in the game. We cast her, I think we were on first day of production, actually, and she was cast, and she was from England, so she had to fly over, and she was on another film shoot. So she came about a day before we started shooting with her, and she came, and Kacey and her had about a day, an evening, to get to know each other before we, you know, threw them into a scene together, and they had to pretend that they had a long-lasting, important relationship. But we think they pulled that off fairly well. But she had an anger to her about this that we thought was really interesting when we talked to her in advance. She thought of it as when you're in a relationship with someone who's an addict, and you know that they, you know, that they have this problem, you know that they, it's hard for them to get better, but you kind of think that they can, if you're there to help them, you know, you might be able to help them get better. But then that was her take on it. At the same time, there was sort of this fierce, intelligent anger to her about it that we thought was really interesting, that made the character less of sort of this like sad sack kind of saintly person. And so we just thought she brought, I mean, she was both an incredible actress, but also she brought a really interesting take to the role that we hadn't necessarily imagined when we were writing the character.
Wonderful. Yeah, but both are incredible. So you've recently had a lot of recognition from TIFF and various other film festivals, including Miami and Philadelphia. How does it feel to have that to be recognized for this film in such a way?
Yeah, I mean, it's great. You know, you don't ever make a movie to win awards, but you know, it's nice when, you know, it does happen at a film festival. But even, you know, it's nicer just for the film to travel around the world. You know, awards are nice and everything, and it does maybe get a headline, or it allows other people to kind of discover the film, because film festivals program hundreds of movies, and, you know, if your film doesn't have, you know, a bunch of stars in it, sometimes your film can get lost. So we're always just happy for the film to travel, to play festivals. Winning awards allows other people to kind of, you know, find out about the movie and see it, and hopefully discover it and have their own interpretation of it. So yeah, it's thrilling. It's really nice. You know, Philadelphia, the jury gave a special mention to Kacey, which is really nice. You know, her performance, you know, keeps being praised, and that makes us really happy, because, you know, she's great and she deserves it.
She absolutely does. And do you have any moments that will stick with you throughout the rest of your career that happened on set or even off set?
I once mistaken Kacey's head in the monitor as a mannequin head, and I said, "Why is that mannequin there?" And it was Kacey standing alone. It was truly one of the most psychotic moments I've ever felt. I'm not prone to that at all. It was towards the end of the shoot, maybe like the last week. We were all a little bit loopy. It was in the day. It wasn't even a night shoot. And we were in a convenience store, and the convenience store was very eclectic, had lots of different things. And I just looked at the monitor and said, why is that mannequin head there? And it was our lead actress just standing there, very still, I'll say, to my credit, she was very still. But I remember our DP, who's lovely and very funny, but doesn't laugh out loud very often, looked at me so seriously and said, "Are you joking?" And I do joke a lot on set. That was truly one of the like craziest realizations of like, oh wow, that's not a mannequin, that's our lead actress. I don't know if I explained that in any cohesive way, but the feeling of realizing how insane I was in that moment was shocking, and I don't think I'll remember that. And the poor Kacey had no idea, and like everyone around the monitor, which is 5-6 people, costume, our script supervisor Yonah, our DP, we couldn't stop laughing. I think we were even rolling. We did a take and we couldn't even watch the take. We were all laughing so hard. That was a good moment. But I mean, and that's like that was a high moment sort of for me. I wasn't high, but it felt like it. Where we just had a lot of fun on set. And I think when you're making a movie that's so serious, and for Kacey and Amber, the emotional toll on doing the movie is relatively high, because there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of actual visual emotion, crying,
there's a lot of snot and tears.
And that stuff's hard to do, and they're really going to places where we have no idea what they're doing and where they're bringing that from, but it's remarkable, and it's what makes good movies. But I think we always try to create an atmosphere on set that is lighthearted and fun and funny, and we even though the subject matter takes itself very seriously, we tried not to take ourselves very seriously. And so I think just making sure that environment on set is not an oppressive one, and one that is enjoyable to come to work every day is sort of key. So being able to laugh is and then there was some good ones on White Lie.
Awesome. What about you, Yonah?
That was definitely a highlight. I don't know if there was one particular thing like that for me. It was our first experience working with a large crew. All of our films before this have been very small micro-budget productions, with us and a handful of sort of friends making movies. It was a very different experience on this for us, working with a very large crew, working with a very talented, skilled set of professionals, working with such an incredible cast. It was sort of every day I would wake up assuming that something was going to go wrong and the movie was going to get canceled that day, just because, life is difficult. Making movies is even harder. And so the fact that we got through every day, made a movie that, we feel proud of and people seem to like, still kind of surprises me. And so, there was sort of a thrillingness and deep terror to every day that will live within me for all eternity. And on every movie this is our fourth feature, and I get a little bit more gray hair, sort of right around here after each film. And this one, it was like a lot more gray hair.
Okay. So are there any genres that you haven't done yet that you'd like to?
We're always flirting with trying to do a horror, but it hasn't materialized yet. But it will one day. I think it will. I mean, some of the best directors have done horror. It's a fun genre to work in. It's just got to be. There's just a lot of shit, and you don't want to make a shit horror. So it's hard to sort of fall in love with something and really feel like it's it's the one to pursue. So yeah, that's always in the back of the mind, trying to play in that genre at some point, but we have nothing to show for it yet.
I mean, we have a movie with a monster, but that's not necessarily a horror movie.
A more action adventure, maybe.
Oxbow?
Oh, that movie. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we have a movie with like a literal creature and a monster in it.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
But yes, I mean, Kacey is a monster in this movie too.
Right.
All right. So are there any other aspects of the film industry that you'd like to pursue?
Do you mean like, do we want to act ourselves? The answer is no. I mean, obviously you're both writers and directors, but do you want to produce and? Well, we are producers as well. We produced this film. We've produced for others. Calvin's produced a lot for a great director, Sofia Bogdanovich. And we've produced a number of films for my brother, Lev, who's the editor and composer of White Lie. He has his first feature from a couple of years ago called The Intestine in 2016. And he has a short film right now called Every Day's Like This that's playing festivals. It played TIFF last year. It's at Slam Dance in a few weeks. So, no, I mean, we do like producing for people. We don't have a great deal of bandwidth. So it's not, we can't just produce for anyone. But, you know, if you happen to be related to us, we'll produce for you. We enjoy producing. We really like writing and directing. That's what we want to spend most of our life doing, you know, bringing our own films to the screen. So it doesn't give us a lot of time for other things. But on our previous films, we did do a lot more than we're doing now. We've shot all of our previous films ourselves. You know, tend to do some of the production design, wardrobe, makeup, hair on you name it. On our smaller films, we did it ourselves. On this one, thankfully, we didn't do all of that. People better than us were able to do those things. So we've had our hand in a lot of pots over the years.
Okay, awesome. For you, Calvin?
Yeah, same. I mean, we're a team. We've done everything together, and I don't see that changing.
Cool. So in these unprecedented times, are there what are you looking forward to getting back to? Do you have any projects in the pipeline that you're looking forward to getting back to?
We're working on a script right now. Thankfully, we're only in the script writing phase, not the development phase. So we're not worrying too much about the way in which COVID would be affecting a film set. We have lots of colleagues who are shooting right now, and it sounds like an absolute nightmare. No, I mean, you know, we're working away. I think we're most looking forward to being able to see a movie in a theater again one of these days. It's been a very long time since saw anything on a very large screen. Kelvin has a big screen behind him, but it doesn't still quite match.
Not quite. It's close.
So it's close. But I would say that's definitely one of my, that's what I'm looking forward to most. I'd say probably Kelvin as well.
Yeah.
Cool. And who inspires you in the industry? I mean, was there like one person that, or a group of people that inspired you to do this and continue to inspire you?
A great question. I mean, it's like the great question is what inspires you to continue doing it, and because it is this funny gripe and constant complaint that many of our colleagues have, is that it's just and it's not heroic. You're not saving lives. It's just, it is hard to make movies, and it can be grueling, and there's a lot of no's, and you know, it took 3 years of development to get the money for White Lie, and even then we didn't, you know, have enough money, or you know, we could have, you could always use more. So it's a frustrating thing, and luckily, I'm very lucky for this. I feel we're both very lucky. We've been doing this for a decade. we never really question quitting. And I think that's a good thing and not something to ever really dwell on if it doesn't come up. If instinctually your brain doesn't go to, should I continue doing this or not? And your brain instead just goes to, oh, what's the next film? What's the next film? What's the next film? Don't question it. Just keep going. You know, as I said earlier, you know, we're always looking for new films, and we've seen a lot at this point, having watched movies pretty obsessively for a decade. But there are still movies, whether they're new ones you see at a festival or old ones that you just haven't seen before, that still get you excited, that there's still something thrilling about watching something for the first time and having that rush of oh wow, that really affected me in a certain way. And I don't really want to question why. It's still there, and I think that's all that matters.
Wonderful. And for you, Yonah?
I was thinking about Calvin's answer to the question. I don't actually remember what the question was.
Who inspires you in the industry?
A billion people. I think, as sort of what Calvin's point, that films inspire us and they get our juices flowing. And so I think cinema at the moment is getting worse. I think that there are fewer and fewer films being released each year that we think are of any merit. But you still come across a movie, every couple of films, every X amount of days, months, whatever it may be, that get your juices flowing in a way that you just didn't expect, and it gets you excited to make films again. Whether or not I think the landscape is worse than it used to be a decade ago, 3 decades ago, 5 decades ago, there's still a power to movies that, compels us to keep doing this really difficult, kind of foolish thing for the rest of our lives. And that, for better or for worse, we're kind of stuck.
Right, cool. Okay. So is there a book that you're a fan of that hasn't been adapted to film or TV or Netflix yet that you'd love to be a part of?
I think there's a couple books, but I don't think I want to say them just in case anyone else nabs them. We got to keep them up our sleeve for when we have the ability or power to adapt them ourselves.
Yeah. And for you, Calvin, the same thing?
Yeah, Atlas Shrugged, maybe. Or did they make that into?
They have. You don't. You're a big Atlas Shrugged fan, Calvin?
Yeah, huge Ayn Rand fan. No, same answer as Yonah. We keep tight-lipped on on what we want to option.
Yeah, probably a good idea. So with the popularity of streaming services like a Netflix, what do you think the future of cinema is?
I think we're kind of here. Like, people keep talking about this as if something's coming, but I think we're already living it. You know what I mean? Like, I think it sounds stupid, but the future is now. Like, we're living in a place where people don't go to the theaters much unless, there's a new Spider-Man movie to see or whatever, the 80th Avengers movie. The generation of people who did go to see sort of the middle class of movies, good dramas, good genre picks, are getting older and dying. Everybody wants to stay home and watch things in the comfort of their room, on the couch in their bed, and so they can stop and pee and look at their phones. To me, it's slightly scary and depressing. I do have hope that there will still be a place for movies like ours, but it does seem increasingly like there is little room for that, and you have to either have the world's biggest stars or something hugely hooky in your story to get anyone remotely interested in your movie. I don't know. I can't speak to what 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years is going to look like. But I think we're sort of, if you look at where we are now, you can kind of get a picture of what it might look like in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I think selfishly, it would be nice if things don't change too radically. There's, as Yonah said, there's that longing for sort of just straight adult dramas to make a lot of money at the U.S. box office. But I think that's we're past that, and that just, there might be the odd one, but I think that's a lost hope. And so the hope, we're quite privileged living in Toronto. I don't know where you are in the UK, but in Toronto we have the TIFF Lightbox, which is home to the festival, but it's a year-round cinematheque and movie house. They have five screens, and so there's a good chance that if something's out on Netflix, like if the theater was open this year, we could have seen Mank in theaters. We were able to see Irishman in theaters last year. And then aside from those bigger releases, they do program a lot of foreign language, smaller films that have very, very small audiences and don't actually make that much money, but there's still the space to see them in a theater. And the programmers at TIFF are willing to program them, sometimes take a chance. And even if it's a small audience, they're still going to get some butts in seats to see that movie and see that movie in a theater. And so I just hope that doesn't go away. Just purely selfishly, I want the ability to see those movies in a theater, to still have that theater going experience, regardless of if it's Irishman or if it's a Belatar restoration. I'd like there to be a place in my city to be able to see those in a theater. Even if that audience doesn't grow, I hope it doesn't shrink more than it already has.
Yeah, I'm in London, by the way, London, UK. So what are you hoping the audience will take away from White Lie when they get a chance to see it?
That's always a tough question. I don't think you ever go into making a movie being like, this is our message, this is what we want to have people take away. I think you learn some of what people are taking away, having screened it for over a year now at this point, and having done many of these kind of Q&As with live audiences or just one-on-ones. And I think people feel conflicted, and people don't always know really how to sit with the film. People sometimes feel unsettled. People have further questions, and that's a nice thing. I think regardless of the specific film, you want people leaving the theater being able to talk about it, not leaving the theater just being like, well, I had all the answers and that was okay, or I liked it, I didn't like it. I think White Lie does inspire some enthusiastic conversation amongst the people that have gone to see the movie together, or a family that has seen it together. And so that's a nice thing. It feels like you've done something that inspires some sort of conversation. And
I think the one thing we set out in the script to do was to do some self-introspection in terms of you rooting for, at points, realizing you're rooting for someone who's doing something truly shitty, feeling bad about it, and then nonetheless getting caught up in that a minute later and rooting for her again. And that kind of wave that happens in it, we've heard from a number of people that a lot of audiences that they did that. They would sort of catch themselves at some points and say, why do I want her to get away with this? But they still did in that moment. And so, it's not a huge action picture. You don't have a roller coaster that you get of emotions when you're watching Jurassic Park or something like that. Nonetheless, in our smaller dramatic way, we were still able to sort of create that for people. And, if you felt that, and that's great.
All right. Great. Okay, well, I'm going to leave it there, but thank you so much for speaking to me today. This has been incredible, and I look forward to whatever you come out with next.
Oh, thanks so much. It was great talking to you too, Marc.
Thank you for watching The Fan Carpet. Please follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram for more content next time.
I'm just going to try and keep smiling, and love you guys.
I'm here on the largest of the Balearic Islands, Mallorca, with the turquoise waters of the Mediterranean Sea, beautiful mountainous landscape, the thriving city of Palma, quaint little market towns, a growing number of luxury hotels. It's no surprise that the likes of Audrey Hepburn and Elizabeth Taylor like to holiday here. So come and join me as I take you round Mallorca.
Thank you for watching The Fan Carpet. If you like this video, be sure to click that thumbs up button at the bottom of your screen. And also be sure to subscribe to the Fan Carpet YouTube channels. They're absolutely free and so much fun too. Be sure to check out the official website, thefancarpet.com. Also, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay up to date with reviews, competitions, the latest news, and so much more.